Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the VRRC for our final touring car racing action for a little while. Anyway, I'm sure the touring cars will be making a return in the very near future, as popular as they've been. But we are in for a really, really good show tonight. I'm sure the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit playing host to the final rounds of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. It's been a fantastic season of racing, one that has not quite been wrapped up yet. We've just been busily doing the maths before we came on air. Mathematically, there are still 3 drivers who could win this championship, but certainly it's going to take quite an effort from those running further back to steal it from Jack Smith. But strange things have happened. We shall wait and see how we go tonight. Andy McEwan here in the commentary box, joined by Jack Oliphant for one last hurrah this season. And Jack, this has been one of my favourite championships to date, actually. We've had closer championships, it must be said, at this point in the season, but the racing that we've been treated to over the last 7 weeks has been top-notch as usual. Yeah, it's been pretty thrilling stuff, hasn't it? We've been to Brands Hatch a couple of times. Obviously, Alton Park was interesting. We've had the domination of the latter season of Nicky Taylor. He's all of a sudden sort of turned up in the second half of the season, and we're trying to figure out why constantly or how he's managed to turn up the wick. The BMWs with the rear-wheel drive compared to the front-wheel drive. Previous touring car champions we've done, we've only had front-wheel drive cars, so that's been an interesting dynamic. Push-to-passes in there as well. It has been really rather thrilling. Oliver Gibson's had a fantastic sort of championship round in sort of 1 week, and then next week has fallen off a cliff, and it's been sort of toing and froing quite a lot. The championship seems to be slightly wrapped up, not quite all the way, as you just said, Andy, but there are still plenty of podium positions and prizes left to be had. Indeed so, and 2 fantastic races to be had tonight here at the home of British Motor Racing. We were at Brands Hatch, which has sort of been our traditional touring car end-of-season venue for a little while, a week ago, and instead finishing it today on the full Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone. But that's just part of what has been a fantastic 8-week calendar even. Donington Park National Circuit kicked it all off way back towards the end of April with the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit up next. Then we went to some more technical circuits, Croft, Alton Park and Snetterton in the middle of the season before the high-speed sweeps of Thruxton, then Brands Hatch, and as we've said, Silverstone here to end the season. And it is a season that has produced lots of different winners, lots of different drivers on the podium, but there has been really one constant over the course of the last 7 weeks, and that is the presence of a Jack Smith pedalled BMW up towards the front of the field. And as a result, he arrives here at Silverstone with a very healthy championship lead, it must be said. Not quite insurmountable, but certainly he is keeping everyone else at arm's length. 242 points for Jack Smith as we arrive here at Silverstone, and he has achieved that healthy lead by never really being out of the top 5. And Jack, that's exactly what we saw from him a week ago at Brands Hatch. Yeah, he did very well. I've actually cut together a few highlight videos, so I've watched the Brands Hatch races back a couple of times, and he did superbly, specifically in that second race as well, to carve through the field rather cleanly, hutch onto the back of a battling Oliver Gibson versus Jordan Taylor, and all of a sudden then sort of pick his moments, but without making too much of a risk. I think there was a bit of contact with Josh Martin later, which gave you a rather sharp intake of breath, Andy, if you remember it well, but Graham Hill bend, but they managed to get away with it, and he did come home with the most amount of points. Nicky Taylor was the driver that came home with the second most amount of points, another pole lights the flag victory for him in race number 2. Sorry, my door has just broken, and I am struggling to think if it's going to fall over or not. That's why I'm slightly distracted. And then, as I said, Oliver Gibson, who had a fairly good week compared to some of the weeks, potentially like Thruxton, where his second race was definitely one to be forgotten. Oliver did very well in both rounds this time, and that meant that he had the driver of the round coming in his way, so he got a nice medal and I believe an NGK jacket to go alongside it. Nicely done, Jack, considering the peril that you seem to find yourself in all of a sudden. This possibly isn't the best of time to ask you to explain all of the championship permutations, so I'll take that particular duty off your hands, if you like, because Jack Smith has not quite wrapped up the championship yet. Now, he is 25 points ahead of Elliot Dalton-Ayres. When you consider that there are something like, I think it was 57 points available over the course of the night, you might be thinking, well, that means that the top 4 drivers are all in contention because the top 4 are covered by only 29 championship points. But that's not quite as simple as that, because dropped scores, the bane of any commentator's life, start to come into effect now. And essentially, Jack Smith's worst score of the season so far is a 29-point evening. You basically drop your lowest total score, so that's your worst individual night of racing, and his came at the second round, actually, at Brands Hatch on the Indy circuit, 29-point score. Now, that means that basically, even if Jack Smith didn't turn up tonight and didn't race in either of the races, he's guaranteed to earn those 29 points back, because a 0 would then become his drop score with me so far. That means that whatever happens tonight, he's guaranteed 29 championship points, and that therefore limits the championship protagonists to, we believe, the top 3. Carl Felvers essentially needs an act of God to strike upon Jack Smith in order to have a chance of beating him. Elliot Daltonaire's chances are not much better, being only 1 point further up the road, but he essentially needs to try and win both races with pole position and fastest laps, which, remember, are worth 3 points apiece tonight, to have any chance of beating Jack Smith. It's a long shot, Jack, but we have seen strange things happen. This is a circuit that we don't tend to go touring car racing on all that often, and there are going to be lots of drivers out there gunning for Jack Smith and gunning to try and end their season on a high, so he might not be feeling all that secure.
No, I think the practice times were very, very close indeed, and there were some drivers that actually you don't expect to be potentially on the front row, very much proving they've got the pace around here at Silverstone. It is a very long lap, so that might explain the reason why we haven't had many people putting in hundreds of laps, but there's still been a fair amount put in for the practice session. Silverstone should be one of those tracks that a lot of people have used plenty of times, whether it's in this simulator, whether it's in other simulators, this car or other cars, but we're looking forward to seeing how they deal with it. And of course, we've got to figure out what they're all racing for. We've got the prizes to be coming up with. Now, Lewis did a sterling job last week of making this very interesting, so I'm going to attempt to be as good as him now, which is a sentence that, no offense, Lewis, I'm slightly depressed to say. I know. P1, first place prize, is a Cammus simulation wheelbase. It hasn't started very well. Along with a first place trophy, of course. Second place is the Aegon 34-inch fantastic gaming monitor with a second place trophy to go on your wall as well. And then the third place, which obviously is sort of dealing between the likes of Elliot Daltonaires and Kyle Felvis and the likes, is playing for a Thrustmaster handbrake and shifter, a prize that we haven't given away that often in comparison to, say, the Aegon 34-inch or the Cammus wheelbase. So probably quite a lot of people will be quite happy with the third place prize, and you get the trophy alongside it as well. P4, you get 2 hours of sim practice at the VRRC. No, I've said it again. Rich is going to have me off. VRRC Sim Centre. And fifth place, you get 1 hour of VRRC Sim Centre practice as well. And, of course, there's the prize draw where 2 drivers will be entered into it. 2 drivers will be pulled out of the hat. I do apologise. They must have done 7 rounds or more, and they must not be in the top 5 come the end of the championship as well. And they will win 1 hour of sim practice. The driver of the round, as we give every week, we gave it to Oliver Gibson last week, gets a nice little medal and an NGK jacket to go alongside it. And the top scorer will be receiving an NGK hat for, because obviously you need a bobble hat in this 30-degree heat that we're currently having.
Well, yes, but we are in the UK, so you can guarantee this time next week it'll be snowing, and we'll be very, very grateful for the bobble hat, that's for sure. Excellent job there, Jack. I don't think anyone noticed any mistakes, because there weren't any as far as I'm concerned. With that, shall we take some time to reflect on what we've done here so far and hand ourselves over to a true professional, because Lewis Edwards, as always, is ready to give us a guided tour of the Silverstone circuit.
Hello and welcome to Silverstone for the final round of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship Season 4. We're going to be on the GP loop tonight to round out the season. Heading into turn 1, it's just a little lift through here, take a good chunk of the apex curb to open up the radius of the corner, flat out through the left-hander of 2, and then we want to use as much of this entry curb as we can to open up the corner. Taking just a little nibble of that apex curb, but important to get back all the way over to the right hand side to open up this left-hander onto the first long straight of the lap. We're going to be using the hybrid, and we're going to be searching for a slipstream come qualifying to see if you can gain those all-important few hundredths of a second, which may make the difference for the championship. For this left-hand, you want to brake at the marker board, you want to dart aggressively to the apex, and then use a lot of this apex curb at the final part of the corner there. Now through the right-hander, it's all about getting a good slingshot out of this corner and not going onto the AstroTurf on the exit on the left-hand side there, as that will really slow your momentum down. Heading towards Copse Corner now, one of the most famous corners in world motorsport. We're going to be preparing to take it in 5th gear, just a quick downshift and a flick to the right. You want to use the curb to get the rotation, and again avoiding that green AstroTurf on the exit. So we're back on the hybrid now. We're going to go through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. We're going to go down the gears, flick it right, then left, and then back over to the right. And it's really important to get a good exit through here, as we've got another long straight, so another slipstreaming opportunity in qualifying. Might see quite a few moves into Stowe. Seen plenty of famous moves in World Motorsport made here. And you want to brake as the curb starts on the left-hand side just here, down into 4th gear, hugging the apex and using that curb to get a little bit of rotation through there. Again, not extending the track on the exit there too much. Into the final chicane now. You want to brake just after the curb starts on the right-hand side. And we're fighting a little bit of oversteer, but we carry good momentum through the corner. Take as much of that right-hand apex curb as you can. Back on the hybrid, and then we're through the final corner, and that completes a lap of Silverstone.
Well, the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, it's a driver's favourite for a reason. We talk a lot about some of the fantastic racetracks that we're blessed to have here in the UK, Brands Hatch, Alton Park, for example, all of which are very hilly and narrow and tight and twisty, and they sort of really showcase the British countryside at its very best. It is odd, isn't it, then, that Silverstone is also held in such high esteem, Jack, because it is sort of the opposite of all of that. It's a Formula 1 FIA Grade 1 circuit, so it's very wide, very open, lots of runoff area, very flat and featureless, really, and yet, as a driving experience, especially in a car like this, which moves around a bit, it's an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, in Britain, we've got some very unique tracks. I think that's why everybody really likes them, isn't it? They're unique to the world of motorsport compared to some other countries, which do have little gems here and there, but we seem to have the most amount of little gems or hidden gems in motorsport, which is quite nice. But Silverstone, at the end of the day, if you want to be really battling with the big boys in the motorsport world, you have to have one of these top grade spec tracks, and Silverstone is obviously a pretty good example of that. Unlike Spa, where it's not as hilly, it still does have Maggots and Beckett's, Abbey, Copse. They're all fantastic. I mean, the Maggots-Beckett's complex is probably one of the most enjoyable complex of corners in any car anywhere in the world. And then Abbey and Copse, they're fantastic to really send the car through there. You're on the grip, you're on the edge pretty much constantly. I'm not a fan of the loop or Vale chicane, so less said about that, the better. But and then you got Stowe as well, which again is very medium speed corner, but you're constantly dancing with the car and it moving around and waiting to get on the power. You have to be so patient through that area.
I love it when Jack starts talking about parts of circuits, or indeed whole circuits, that he doesn't like, because it almost certainly means he's had an accident at those parts of the track. Is that the case, Jack?
Have I had an accident around Silverstone? No, in fact, the runoff areas are too big that I haven't actually managed to make the wall yet in a Ginetta G40. They're not going quick enough.
Fair enough. Although Jack is fairly handy in a GT car around Silverstone, we have been reliably informed, so we might get on to Jack's top tips a bit later on. In the meantime, let's concentrate on what's really important, which is the qualifying session for this final round of the championship, where again there is a point on offer for pole position and, perhaps more importantly really, track position to be fought for. It's Nicky Taylor fastest right now, but Andy Dorman, who has been quick all week in testing, second fastest. Now I know we're early on in the session, and because it's such a long lap, Jack, it will take a bit longer maybe for the session to really come alive in the way that we expect it to, but right now Andy Dorman second is a really good effort.
It is indeed, yeah. I think Andy was actually the top of the times in practice. Obviously, you have a lot of laps to be able to do that. And when I sort of exclaimed about that, I was like, oh my God, Andy Norman, he's top in practice. Lewis then brought it right back down to earth and said, well, he can use the lots of push-to-passes and hybrid usage, shall we say, in the practices, which he can't do in qualifying. So the fact that he's gone out there and put in a time that is still worthy of the front row for the time being is very impressive, because of course he doesn't have any hybrid usages or anything like that. So yeah, Lewis might not be a believer, but I'm a firm believer in Andy Dorman for this particular round. You've also got Scott Bugner up there. He's doing pretty well. And Kyle Felvis, obviously he's currently ahead of his rival Elliott Dalton Ayres for that second place in the championship. And Elliott's only just about clinging on to that top 10. Jack Smith, our potential champion, though, he's wavering down in 11th place for the time being. He's got a very rapid looking Eric Axelson just behind him.
Indeed so. This qualifying session, a significant one in some ways for Jack Smith, because he's really sort of gunning for pole position. If he gets pole position, then it basically means that he would have to non-finish the other two races tonight and have Elliot Dalton-Ayres claim maximum points. So if Jack Smith can go up there and fight for the pole position, then that could really, really benefit him. But then Elliot Dalton-Ayres is only 10th fastest right now, so neither of them yet really excelling. Nicky Taylor still fastest then, with Dorman second, Bugner in third position, I believe that is, and then we've got Carl Felvis fourth, Oliver Gibson fifth, Axelson, Lask, Hill, Curtis, and Dalton-Ayres completing the top 10. But another raft of lap times about to come in, and Jack Smith, no, they're not, because we're on the international pit straight, aren't we? So that's already caught me out, Jack, because weirdly, despite the fact we've got this multi-million-pound complex over on the wing, we never really seem to use it, do we, in real-world racing? So yes, this is one of the rare chances to see Abbey Corner as turn one.
Yeah, you probably actually know a little bit better than me. I don't know, you're better versed in bike racing than I am, but do they use it for the MotoGP, the Silverstone wing? Because apart from that, it's pretty much only the F1, isn't it, that comes to town and actually uses the Silverstone wing?
Yeah, World Endurance Championship used to, but of course they don't come to the UK these days, which is a crying shame. As far as I'm aware, MotoGP is the national circuit, because I remember we've had a few particularly close finishes in MotoGP over recent years where they've been side by side through Woodcote. So yeah, it really is only if it's the international circuit in use for sort of British club motorsport that we tend to venture down to that end of the track, which is a little bit of a shame, although it does take about 20 minutes to get in via the circuit access roads. But that is a rant for another day. It is certainly nice to see it being used here in the sim, and Abbey Corner on turn one is going to be a little bit tricky, I think, because it's not a particularly long run into that first corner here at Abbey, and it's quite a tight apex. It's a fast corner, but quite a sharp corner, a bit sharper than Copse maybe, and that could lead to a bit of drama at the start. Jack Smith here, intriguingly, Jack Oliphant, not really unlocking any pace, and he's actually on to what will now be his penultimate lap of the session.
Yeah, I was expecting a bit of a quicker time as he crossed the start-finish line that particular time, but it doesn't seem to have gone his way. Craig Curtis, though, who's currently managing to crop himself into 9th place, he has just gone green in Sector 1, and he was second in the practices, which is astonishing. I mean, Andy Dorman first in practice and Craig Curtis second. No offence to those two drivers. It was unexpected, and I know Lewis is going to probably come on the chat saying, they can use push to pass, but it's still going to be very impressive if they're inside the top 10. I don't think we've seen Craig Curtis inside the top 10 on a qualifying session. I could be wrong. He's not necessarily a driver I've really kept tabs on every single time we've gone racing, I'll be honest, in the qualifying, but I still think, off the top of my head, it's a fairly good effort from him. Eric Axelson's just got green in Sector 1, and Jack Smith has as well, so a few drivers starting to turn up the wick.
Craig Curtis has qualified either 11th, 12th, or 13th for every round so far this season. He's been incredibly consistent, and that was an incredibly good guess as well, Jack. Yeah, not quite got into the top 10 so far in qualifying. He has had a handful of top 10 finishes, though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 top 10 finishes, including that top 5 at Snetterton in race 1. So we know he races better than he qualifies. If he can qualify well, then he should be on for even better race results. And look at that, up to 7th place now with time for one more flying lap.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing if he can eke out just a little bit more. It's one of those corners, Abbey, we were talking about it before. It's obviously the first corner, where you think you can take so much more speed through it than you can. And then all of a sudden, you hit a wall, which doesn't feel like a wall, but you end up hitting the track limits on the outside. Or you can't quite get it turned back in for the loop section. And you really do have to be a little bit patient through that section of the track. Eric Axelsson is about to come across the line, I believe. What's he good for? 6th position. So not an improvement, I don't think, for Eric Axelsson. Again, he has to be a little bit patient because your lap, it's such a long lap, isn't it? 2 odd minutes we've got going for these touring cars. You can ruin it in Abbey, or you can ruin it through the loop on track limits, especially through the section, through the exit that we're about to go through here, the left-hander. So much tighter than everybody always thinks it is. And then if you go track limits there, the game is very stringent on it. It will instantly just take away your time. And considering you only get 4 or 5 laps in a 15-minute session here at Silverstone, you can't afford to do that.
No, that is a very good point. And yeah, you've got to really sort of ease yourself into the lap a little bit. But then when the times are really close, every tenth starts to matter. And so you don't really want to ease yourself in. Getting a banker lap, I think, is a good way to go. Maybe that's what we've seen from people like Jack Smith. Maybe he's now going to really start pushing. But only 11th for Jack right now, who I think is the BMW just ahead of Eric Axelsen. So Axelsen's getting a nice little slipstream here. And it's benefiting him. Purple in the first sector means faster than anybody else. Let's see how the rest of the lap goes.
Yeah, he's absolutely flying, isn't he? I'm looking forward to see. Oh, Eddie Dorman's just gone green sector 2 and 3, and I think just set his fastest lap of the session. He's still 3.5 tenths off Nicky Taylor, but everybody seems to be 3.5 tenths off Nicky Taylor, no matter what track we go to in qualifying. And he's just set a purple sector 2, actually. So Andy Dorman, yeah, improving, just eking his way out ahead of Scott Bugner, who hasn't really improved at all in this qualifying session since he set his first quick time. Eric has just gone not so quick in sector 2. Whether or not he can make that up, yeah, I think he's about 4 tenths down actually in sector 2 than Oliver Gibson, who's just gone a green. So not probably going to be an improvement via Eric Axelsen. He's just gone past Jack Smith now, actually, hasn't he? So as people start crossing the line, Craig Curtis, Ethan Hill, Jack Smith not improving. He's stuck in 11th. In fact, the only place he can go down is down now, unfortunately. But Joel Lask jumps his way up to 3rd place.
Very nice effort that from Joel Lask. So Joel, who's got his teammate back for this final round as well, Scott Bugner. At the moment, the LB Motorsport Hyundais would lock out row number 2. Axelsen, as you predicted, despite having a nice tow from Jack Smith round almost the entire lap, not able to improve upon 7th place. But it does look as though it is going to be another pole position for Nicky Taylor. Nicky Taylor has been by far the qualifying king of the season so far. In fact, he's claimed pole for the last 4 weeks in a row, and he's now made it 5 weeks in a row. So for over half the championship and on consecutive weeks, Nicky Taylor has been fastest in qualifying. That really is an astonishingly good effort. Across the line goes the pair of HFT Racing Hondas. No improvements from them. Andy Dorman is the last driver on a lap, but I don't think is improving. So it looks as though Nicky Taylor is going to wrap up that 5th consecutive pole position, and that means that we will be having a very familiar interview in just a few moments' time, because we'll catch up with our pole sitter on the other side of this short break. Welcome back, everyone, to Silverstone. Qualifying done here for the final time this season in the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. But it is going to be a very familiar voice that you're about to hear here in the commentary box, because for the 5th week in a row, it's pole position for Nikki Taylor. Nikki, you're making a bit of a habit of this, it must be said. Obviously a light car, we must say, because you're a bit further down in the championship, but there's no doubt about it. You are pedaling it supremely well. A bit of a case of what could have been this season, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've shown the pace throughout the course of the season with getting 5 poles in a row and 5 wins in race 1 in a row. 4 wins in race 1 in a row, and hopefully going to be 5. But yeah, the pace has been there. It was the kicker not being able to do the 2 rounds because I was away. But it is what it is. The pace is there, and the pace will be there for the next touring car. So whenever that is. So yeah, I think with it's just been a championship really for me of what could have been, but oh well, is what it is, and I've still shown the pace that I've still got it in the last quality of the season, and yeah.
And pole position, always handy to have, although I do suspect that here at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit, we're in for quite a lively start to the race, and you've got some drivers near the front who really are just going to be gunning for good results, drivers who we don't always see qualifying that well. So how exciting do you expect this opening lap to be?
It should be quite good fun, because obviously we've got Joel and Scott up there who obviously haven't done all the championships. Their cars are very light as well, so I knew they were going to be quite quick. Andy, I know racing with him in academy when I challenged him for the title in TT, so I know how he races quite well. So I know I'm quite glad it's one of him on the front row, as well as like either Joel or Scott just behind, so I know how they race. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one, and see how we go here, but is what it is. I've still got 5th in championship up for grabs with the form I'm currently in. I think that's more than doable. But yeah, just see how we go. And then obviously with Kyle fighting for the championship in race 2, I'm not going to put up too much of a fight if he comes up behind me or if I come behind him. But yeah, just have some fun.
Yeah, that's the other point, I guess, isn't it? Because you're not officially in the same team as Kyle, but obviously there is an affiliation. There's a link there. You guys are all friends. You work together as well before the races and during the races. So how much do you have one eye on that? It's a very long shot for his championship, isn't it? But he could do with some help if someone's willing to provide it. Yeah,
to be fair, if he's... I'll see how his race 1 goes. If Jack's already won the championship by race 2, then team orders go completely out the window, I think, in race 2, which I think... or by race 1, sorry, for Jack, and then race 2 for obviously Kyle. If he's not fighting for it anymore, and if he's got a decent gap to Elliot, then I think Kyle knows as well as me that I'm gonna go for the win from the back and hopefully do the double and get a perfect point score with fast lap in both races. But I don't think fast lap's going to be easy for me this week, because obviously I haven't used push to pass in any laps on server, so it's going to be a big thing here, because you can use about 5 or 6 on a single lap, so gonna have to see how that goes.
That's a very good point, and we shall be keeping one eye on that during the race, that's for sure. Nikki, huge congratulations, though. Really impressive qualifying form, needless to say, and let's see whether you can claim that 5th victory of the season. Best of luck.
Thank you.
So Nikki Taylor, starting from pole position then, the best place to be usually, but as he was sort of hinting at there, Jack, could be a very lively opening lap of the race, because I do expect that hybrid to make a big difference around here. I would not be surprised to see some drivers running out of hybrid before we even get to halfway, because the temptation is always there to jump on it. You've got these really long straights on which you can probably drive straight past someone if you time it right on the hybrid, but you've got to think about the end of the race too.
Yeah, I think who's going to be going for glory? Who wants to be on the cameras for a couple of seconds, really? The likes of Andy Dorman, will he throw away the longevity and his race plan just because he's on pole position? Will that get to his head and he'll want to lead from the front sort of thing? Or will he be a little bit more calm and run the race exactly the same way as he always done, whether he's in the mid-pack or at the front? That's the big question for him. Joel Last, Scott Bugner, they're going to be interesting to try and beat Nikki Taylor. But then obviously you got Elliot Dalton Ayres in 10th, Carl Felvers in 6th. That's really where the story is going to come from, isn't it, over the course of this evening, we think. So we've got to keep an eye on those guys. Craig Curtis in 8th. He's going to be a thorn in the side of Elliot Dalton Ayres, I reckon.
Indeed so, and as Lewis Edwards quite correctly points out, if Jack Smith were to get the fastest lap in this race, that pretty much nets him the championship because it's worth 3 points. That's all he really has to score tonight. So will he be the one to try and save those hybrids and go for the fastest lap? Let's find out, shall we then, for the penultimate time this season. We're ready to go racing here in the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. The Silverstone Grand Prix circuit beckons for Nicky Taylor and Andy Dorman from the front row. The lights go out, away they will go. Is it a good start for the Focus? It is, but Nicky Taylor, I think, will lead them down to turn 1. Oliver Gibson, as you'd expect in the rear-wheel drive BMW, is away well too. They sweep into the right-hander at Abbey Corner. Taylor leads the way side by side for second there. Dorman on the inside, to the outside was going the Blue Hyundai of last. Ethan Hill is around in the background. Jack Smith hopefully avoided all of that, but there is further carnage, and that's Smith. That is Jack Smith. Spun, I'm sure it was at the back of the field. The championship leader colliding with someone at turn 2, and immediately the championship is turned on its head.
Yeah, it was Nathan Smith and Jack Smith who were turned around. I'm not sure if there was contact between the two of them or whether or not they were completely separate incidents, but we do know that Nicky Taylor is away with it. There's no safety car being called for the time being. Joel Lasker's got himself from the second row of the grid up to second place in the race. Andy Dorman has slipped down to third. Here comes Oliver Gibson, a friend and teammate, in fact, brother, I believe, is of Jack Smith. Am I correct in that one? I'm potentially completely wrong. We'll have to wait and see. As I think he's doing battle with, is that Andy Dorman and Scott Bugner? It's just got a bit fuzzy for me, Andy.
Well, we're 3 wide into Cops, I can tell you. Bugner, Gibson, and Felvers, I think that is. Yes, it is. And Felvers getting the better of both of them with a slipstream in the hybrid. Bugner then gives Gibson a headbutt through the apex at Cops, whilst at the front of the field, Andy Dorman slipping behind Joel Lask, but sticking right with him as they make their way through Maggots Beckett. So the order is then Taylor leading by, well, a long way, 2 seconds nearly already. Lask second, Dorman third. 4th position there, Carl Felvers. 5th is Scott Bugner. 6th, Oliver Gibson. 7th, Elliot Dalton Ayres. So Dalton Ayres isn't really capitalising yet on Jack Smith's troubles. Smith is 19th place right now, but Dalton Ayres needs to gain more ground in order to still have a chance of the title. He's right on the tail of this big group of cars, though, heading into Stowe, up the inside of Oliver Gibson, and that was a crucial move made against his championship rival's teammate.
Yeah, Carl Felvers trying to hang around the outside of Bugner as they go into the chicane. Is it going to be a last of the late breakers? No, there's going to be a massive amount of contact. Eric Axels and Josh Martin have been taken out by, is that Carl Felvers?
I think it was. Carl Felvers, I think, was given an assist into all of that, but then, yes, played billiards with the 2 Vauxhalls, both of whom ended up getting some pretty big air. Carl Felvers is so furious that his headset fell off, and he will now rejoin back alongside Eric Axels and take a deep breath and try to pick his way back through the field. You'd be forgiven for thinking that this was race 2, the amount of carnage we've had on lap 1. Oh, and Carl Felvers has given up. He's in the pit lane. He is done. So Felvers out of the race. That is big.
That is massive, and well, if you just spawn back to the pits, that is an instant disqualification.
Yeah.
So the hand is well, the prizes are very much in Elliot Dalton Ayres' hands, but so there is still a race going on. So we'll focus on that and do all the judicials and leave that to the race stewards, and potentially we'll report back and seeing any rulings. But he's definitely not happy as Carl Felvers, which I can sort of understand, but equally, you know, you got to carry on these things, unfortunately. It's a bitter pill to swallow. We'll see if he's back for race number 2. Elliot Dalton Ayres, then, it's all really up to him, isn't it, to try and upset Jack Smith, who had a massive upset earlier in the session. Where's he actually managed to make his way back up to so far? Can't actually see him. He's
16th, I think.
Oh, 16th, so not a massive clawback, but a decent sort of effort. And realistically, he just needs that fastest lap, doesn't he? And a race 2 result, which, if he's towards the back in race 1, will be all the easier.
In theory, yes, although Elliot Dalton Ayres, in fairness, is doing what he has to here. He's picking his way through now from a relatively lowly grid position towards the back of the top 10. He is in the top 5 now and is right behind the 4th placed Hyundai of Scott Bugner, returning to the championship, Scott Bugner, and Elliot Dalton Ayres, interestingly, not using the hybrid down the hanger straight as everybody else in the top 6 was. So Dalton Ayres perhaps thinking about later in the race as well, maybe trying to keep those 3 points away from Jack Smith, but unless he makes progress in the race, it isn't really going to matter. It could matter, though, for his fight for 2nd place in the championship, because with Felvers' non-finish, this likely means that it's now between Elliot Dalton Ayres and Oliver Gibson for 2nd in the points. They are 4 points apart coming into tonight, and remember, there are some pretty good prizes even if you don't win the championship itself. So these two 4 points apart and nose to tail on the track, both right now, Jack, stuck behind Scott Bugner.
Yeah, in fact, I didn't even think about Oliver Gibson and his championship battle, because I thought it was just between Felvers and and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, and my brain can't comprehend 3 people potentially being in with a battle. So yeah, Gibson is right there with it. If we came into this evening and didn't have Felvis in there anyway, we'd still be saying it's ridiculously tight just between Dalton-Ayres and Gibson with only 4 points. That is still a massively tight margin going in for second place in the final round of the championship. So this one, all of a sudden, it's a bit closer on track as well. So it should be quite interesting. I wonder if Gibson has done the maths in his head. He's certainly looking focused, isn't he? Or whether or not he'll just be focusing on the race itself and not trying to do the maths until after race 1.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's the camera angle that we're watching Oliver through, but it does look like he sits very low down in that sim, doesn't he? I mean, they do that in a real car for better weight distribution, but I don't think, as accurate and lifelike as simulators are getting these days, I don't think that kind of thing really matters. So, yeah, very interesting seating position. It's obviously what he likes, and again, as Lewis is quite rightly suggesting to us, maybe he is more of an open wheel kind of guy, and that's sort of the position from which you would expect to sit in a single-seater. Anyway, right now, he has eyes only for Elliot Dalton-Ayres. If he can find a way past Dalton-Ayres, it massively increases his chances of claiming second place in the championship. This now really the most significant battle on the track, but everyone pretty static. The gaps really aren't changing all that much. Dalton-Ayres not able to get close enough to Bugner to have a go, but really nor is Gibson able to close in on Elliot.
Yeah, they're sort of biding their time now, aren't they? Obviously, Gibson would quite like to finish ahead of Elliott in this race 1, but it isn't the end of the world if he doesn't manage it. I think the gap is only going to be increased by about 1 or 2 points. I think it's potentially 2. I'm actually trying to find out now off the top of my head. I can't really remember. I think it's 2, isn't it? Yeah, because they're currently sat in 5th and 6th position. So oh no, it's only 1. So it's 16 points Elliot Dalton-Ayres would get right now, and Oliver Gibson would get 15. So yeah, the gap would increase to 5, but that can really be very easily overturned in race number 2, where carnage is pretty much the standard order, obviously for the first lap or so, with that full reverse grid.
Especially on the last day of school, where people know they're not going to be seeing each other for a few weeks, and any grudges might just sort of go away on their own. So they don't mind too much who they annoy on the final race of the season. This battle, though, I think still has some life in it. Into this part of the circuit now, the tighter part of the circuit through Sector 1, which does favour that BMW. Look at the way that Gibson wriggles off the loop and has visibly gained a car length or so on Dalton-Ayres, and he's on the hybrid as well. So this could be Gibson's opportunity. Down the Wellington straight he goes. The gap starts to creep down, and Dalton-Ayres knows it, pulls to the inside of the road to cover, and that leaves Gibson the only option being the outside line. He's going to tough it out right round the outside. That can work, but it's always risky. Dalton-Ayres cleverly positions the car there, just sort of ran Gibson towards the edge of the road. Oliver backed out, and for now sits in behind. But interestingly there, Jack, Elliott able to defend the position without the use of hybrid, so he's immediately saved 1 hybrid over Gibson, and that could be pivotal later on.
Yeah, I think Gibson now just needs to focus on trying to get through the Maggots-Beckett's complex with with being this close to Oliver, and hopefully maybe try again as they go down towards Stowe. But again, you're using up, you're churning through your hybrid usages, and that's not always the best thing to do, like you just alluded to. So through this section, we'd probably do expect the front wheel drive to gain a little bit. So if I was Oliver, I wouldn't bother trying to even use your hybrid out of this corner. It's going to be a front wheel drive favored section of the circuit, and as we say that, there is a gap or a car length or 2 opened up.
Indeed so. Those high-speed changes of direction, not something that the BMW really excels at. Although, as I mentioned, I think at Thruxton a couple of weeks ago, the new 3 Series, being that much bigger than the old 1 Series, it is a bit better at high speed. The stability a little bit more favourable, but still not really on the same level as the Hyundai. But this has been the fascinating thing this season. We never promised that all of the cars would have the same performance everywhere. Over a lap, they will be near identical, but they will still generate their lap times in different ways. Even the different front-wheel drive cars slightly different in the way that they generate lap time. Now, there is Ethan Hill. He has actually recovered really well from his turn 1 tangle. He's right on the tail of Chris Blakey, who is making, I believe, his first appearance in the top 10. So a few drivers really hitting their stride at the end of the season here, Jack. Yeah,
Chris Blakey doing a pretty good job of carrying a lot of speed through that first section as well. He's a little bit late to the apex and turning in through the first section of the loop, but as he goes through the second, I probably prefer Ethan Hill's line a little bit there, but still very impressive by Blake. He's trying to carry an awful lot of speed. Tyres seem to be holding up well for him, and if you can carry that on, I'm just wondering how much steering angle he's putting through the front tyres. That would be my only worry. But as he comes... Oh, no, he's going to be on the hybrid, actually. Yeah, he was on the hybrid. I was going to say he got an absolutely massive run. As speaking of a run, Elliot Dalton-Ayres must have got a run going into Brooklands and Luffield on Scott Bugner, because the LB Motorsport driver now finds himself as the meat and the sandwich between the two championship rivals.
And that was worth 2 extra points, because once you start getting into the top 5, bigger point differentials between positions. So he's now gaining 3 points over Oliver Gibson, who wants to try and do something about that. Elliot Dalton-Ayres has been hitting the hybrid, we believe, on this lap to get that move made. And that, for me, is sensible, because it puts a buffer now between himself and Oliver Gibson, with whom he's fighting for second in the championship, remember, and perhaps gives him the opportunity to escape now without using hybrids if the two behind start to battle. That's not really happening through Maggots and Beckett's, but perhaps early in the next lap we might start to see the battle behind develop, although now Bugner's on the hybrid coming back at Dalton-Ayres, so that hasn't really gone to plan. Can Elliot outbrake him into Stowe? No, he can't. There was the power of the hybrid. Like I thought would be the case, Jack, you can clear another car down any individual straight, and that is really making this a difficult tactical game to play, because you're jockeying for position inches apart, as you can see, this group of 4, Bugner, Dalton-Ayres, Gibson and Craig Curtis, and all the while you're trying to work out when to use the hybrids, where to use the hybrids, and trying to figure out where your opponents are using them. Perhaps, if you're really clever, trying to figure out how many they've got left compared to you. It is too much to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even bother, to be honest, trying to think about it. I'd just straight up just be like, you know what, I'm just going to do what's best for me. But I think that was a high risk, high reward strategy from Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Maybe he didn't think that Scott Bugner would care enough to try and launch the attack back at him. But at the end of the day, Bugner wants some decent results as well. I don't think he's in with any kind of championship. I think he's currently 8th in the championship. He's got sort of an outside chance at maybe getting into that top 5. He's about 20 odd points, well, 19 points behind Eric Axelson, as he defends on Dalton-Ayres and Gibson looking to follow in the footsteps, or the tyre marks, I should say, of Scott Bugner to try and get up the inside of the Phoenix Sim Racing driver, but he hasn't managed it. But here comes through. Who is that? We haven't mentioned him at all, but it's Craig Curtis having a bit of a move on the BMW.
Yeah, Craig Curtis then looking for 6th position if he can get it. He's up the inside of Gibson, but Gibson then jumps on the hybrid and gets a run on Dalton-Ayres. He's on the outside down to Stowe Corner. This could be significant. He's cleared him already, and he's even up the inside of Bugner. Fantastic driving from Gibson. That was a brilliant use of the hybrid system. It's not quite going to work, though, because now Bugner fights back on the exit, and you get Elliot Dalton-Ayres coming up alongside the BMW too. Now, you can't really go side by side through Beckett. Something has to give, and Dalton-Ayres goes around the outside. Fantastic move that was from Elliot Dalton-Ayres to get back ahead of Oliver Gibson. He is fully aware, as I'm sure is Ollie, of the significance of this battle, and that was some really top quality racing. And now with more hybrid down Hanger Straight, it's about to kick off again.
Yeah, he's very much improved, hasn't he, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, as a driver since we've been covering these championships. I think he's certainly one who's worthy of taking any prize that he wins from this evening, whether it be the Thrustmaster handbrake / shifter, or it be the Aegon display. He's been really one to watch. It's been lovely to see him. And of course, he started that improvement in a vast majority in the GTV3 championship that we did last season, where he would sort of sneak up on us a little bit. He took a very good victory, a couple of victories actually in the early stages, and then kept scoring decent points. And then this touring card, again, he sort of snuck under the radar, and then all of a sudden he sort of lit up the screens with some brilliant racing, and that was one of those examples. So yeah, Elliot doing a fantastic job. Oliver Gibson playing his part, of course, as well, who hasn't had the best season. He's had ups and downs. He's causing a few people, Elaine Gibson, to get on the wine and race too every so often, but he's right there in the thick of it, even towards the end.
This is fantastic racing. It's really reminded me, actually, of some of the NASCAR races that we held here a while ago, where that slipstream was so powerful. You could get a run on someone, clear them into a corner, and then they'd come straight back at you down the next straight. Obviously, here, the hybrid is sort of exaggerating that effect, and we're getting some brilliant side-by-side action through the corners, too. But the difficulty with which drivers are finding it to pull away from others is what's really creating this fantastic battle. It is for 4th place, remember. Scott Bugner, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, Oliver Gibson, Craig Curtis, all together. Interestingly, Jordan Taylor in 8th, not really able to catch them, but they are dropping time to the leading 3, who are fairly well spread out now. Nicky Taylor, the leader, 2nd place for Joel Lask, and Andy Dorman on course for a podium is Andy Dorman. Now, we've had him on the podium before in the VRRC, but not so far this season, as again, Gibson and Dalton-Ayres go wheel to wheel.
Oh my days, yeah, it's going to be Gibson on the inside for the tight right-hander, but again, it's Dalton-Ayres who just about holds on to the place. And what do you think here, Andy? Is Gibson being a little bit too kind? Is it good driving by Dalton-Ayres? Is it a little bit of both? One of these guys are going to have to start sort of turning it up again if they really want to actually win this battle between the two as we get into the last 5 minutes heading into Stowe. I'll just hold on to that question for the time being because here comes Gibson around the outside of Stowe. It's a very tricky corner to make anything happen there, but if you do manage it, you'll be on the inside for the Vale chicane, and I think Gibson has just about managed it. He's going to be late on the brakes. Dalton is holding on to. I don't know how they're doing this one, Andy. It's brilliant stuff, though, for the time being. Craig Curtis is waiting and biding his time for what inevitably, in his eyes, will probably be a big accident as they go down towards Abbey.
Well, this is the thing. Curtis could be the beneficiary here. They're being dropped now by Scott Bugner because they really are starting to become a bit more preoccupied with each other than anyone else. Through Abbey and Farm they go, onto the brakes into Village, and I think this is all really going to come down to how many hybrids they all have. Scott Bugner has got 4 hybrids left, Elliot Dalton 3, Oliver Gibson 5. So for that reason, the smart money is on Gibson here, because if he just saves an extra hybrid or so over Elliot Dalton to the end of the race, he should then be able to use it to £2. He's going to try and do it now. They'll be inside down the Wellington Straight. Dalton couldn't quite get over quickly enough to cover, and surely now Gibson will go through. Can Dalton tough it out around the outside? Gibson is sideways. That might give Dalton a chance, but no, Gibson is through. He still has a hybrid advantage, but now he's got a track position advantage. That was a key move.
Yeah, but I think coming out of Maggots and Beckett's, it's going to be Dalton Ayres who will use the hybrid going into Stowe. He should get a good exit. He'll probably close the gap even more. In fact, he uses the hybrid before we even get to Cops. And over the start-finish straight at the National Pit, Gibson's hard work is all for nothing.
Well, but Dalton can keep on doing that. All that Gibson needs to do is stay with him until the last lap. Be patient. It doesn't matter whether you lead now. Just wait until that final run down the Hanger Straight. If Gibson has a hybrid and Dalton doesn't, I don't see any way that Dalton can defend from it. So Gibson just needs to play this smart, not get goaded into the battle. Just wait until that final lap, which is not that far away. We're going to have 2 more laps to go, I think, at the end of this one. And look at the way that gap for second place has closed as well. Let's keep one eye on that. Joel Last being reeled in here by Andy Dorman, who is on an absolute charge here in the closing stages.
Yeah, and I've just seen Elaine Gibson saying it's great racing, but might need another glass. I'm guessing she means wine. Feel free. You have my permission, Elaine, to mix it with a shot of whiskey as well at this rate. It's going to be a tough one as, Dalton Ayres defending hard yet again into the Vale chicane. You said about Dorman just then. I was actually reading the YouTube chat as well. But where is Dorman? Oh, yeah, that fight for second really is heating up, isn't it?
It is, yeah. He is only 3/10 behind Joel Lask. Now, I think they're pretty even on hybrids, these two. This is a genuine battle. Joel Lask has been caught by the Focus in the closing stages, and as they make their way up towards the loop, we get confirmation that it is 3 hybrid uses available for Joel Lask, 2 for Andy Dorman. So slight advantage to Dorman in that respect, but not a massive one, and he's not using it now. So Joel Lask now using that extra hybrid that he had at his disposal, and well, you can see the effect that he had there to pull away, but now it means they are equal on hybrid uses to the end of the race.
It is indeed, yeah. I'm just looking, Jack Smith as well. Oh, Craig Curtis, he's throwing a spanner in the works, and he's throwing his car up the inside. No, of Oliver Gibson. That would have been rather big news, wouldn't it? Because I don't think he was anywhere near close enough to actually make that move stick as they went into the braking zone. Very quickly before this ignites, we'll touch upon the other BMW, the championship leader, of course, Jack Smith, who's made his way back up into 13th place. I'm just having a look. Does he have the fastest lap? No, he's nowhere near it, actually. He's about 2 seconds off it.
Ah, right. But we're hearing he saved the hybrid as we expected he would. So he has 6 hybrid uses still available. And for 13th place, he's already scoring 8 points. So as far as I know, unless Elliot Dalton can somehow win this race, which, let's be honest, isn't going to happen, Jack Smith is likely to wrap the championship up with about a 12th or 13th place. Now, doesn't that remind you of some other bloke in a BMW winning touring car championships from well down the order at the final round? I'm pretty sure we've seen that happening somewhere before, and Jack Smith may well be about to do exactly the same thing. Had another change between Gibson and Dalton Ayres, by the way. So Oliver Gibson now through into 5th and still has hybrid advantage as well, so we'll have to wait and see whether he can make good use of that as Jack Smith comes up behind Alok Iyengar there, uses one of those hybrids to move into 12th place. Craig Curtis now the inside of Dalton Ayres. That was fantastic racing from Craig Curtis, and now surely gives the big advantage to Oliver Gibson. He breaks away from those two and might even have a go here at chasing after Scott Bugner on the final lap.
I think Craig Curtis has just made the Christmas card list of Oliver Gibson. That was a massive lunge from about 3 car lengths back as soon as we cut to it. I thought the biggest news about that was going to be the fact that Oliver Gibson had made it past Dalton Ayres. But actually, obviously, it was the fact that Craig Curtis managed to get involved. Now, Dalton Ayres has got past Craig Curtis, but I think he's now down to pretty much 0 on the hybrids. He may have 1 left, but he's got a massive margin. He's got 2 seconds to catch up to Oliver Gibson. So that race is pretty much done as we reach into the last 5 seconds. Joel Lask has got past... he was already past Andy Dorman, wasn't he? Dorman wants his grid position back effectively here, Andy, doesn't he?
He does indeed. I think they both got the same amount of hybrid left, right on cue. Rich Hayden, reading my mind, confirms that that is indeed the case. They both have 1 hybrid use left, so they're both going to save it for the hanger straight, but that should mean that Joel Lask is safe as long as he doesn't make a big mistake through Maggots Beckett. So second place unlikely to change. What about Oliver Gibson? He's not really catching... Scott Bugner either. So I think, Craig Curtis, though, has caught Elliot Dalton Ayres and moved ahead of him into Copse Corner. So Dalton Ayres now losing another place. I reckon this is going to put Dalton Ayres and Oliver Gibson almost level on points going into the final race of the season in their fight for second in the championship, unless Elliot can find a way back through in the closing sequence of corners. And with the hanger straight and Stowe corner still to come, that is entirely possible. What can we say, though, about this guy? Nicky Taylor, 5 weeks in a row, he's stuck it on pole position for race 1, and in 4 of those 5 weeks, he's going to be classified the race winner. He has simply crushed the opposition here tonight. Nearly 6 seconds the winning margin, still pushing hard through Club and through Vale and Club. He comes out past the Silverstone wing, sees the checkered flag, and claims a 6th victory of the season, a 5th victory of the season, and I think he's rather happy with that, and rightly so. Second goes to Joel Lask, 3rd to Andy Dorman. Bugner should still be 4th ahead of Oliver Gibson. The question is, who will be 5th? I reckon Craig Curtis has done enough. Yes, he has. Craig Curtis will claim 5th position with Elliot Dalton Ayres in 6th. So that is a big, big moment in the fight for second in the championship, because Gibson for 5th place will claim 16 points, whilst Elliot Dalton Ayres for 7th will claim 14 points. So I reckon maybe there's a point between them, but we'll get confirmation of that between the races. Fantastic opening race of the night. Bit more argy-bargy to the line there. Ilok Iyengar making friends with Chris Blakey, I think that was, and Iyengar beating him to the line. Josh Martin comes through after another disappointing race, but certainly no disappointment this time for Nicky Taylor, who is once more a race winner here in the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. We'll hear from him and the other podium finishers in just a few minutes. Welcome back to Silverstone, everyone. The final race of the season in the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship coming up in just a few minutes. But first, let's hear from our podium finishers from race 1. And yet again, lights the flag victory from pole position in race 1 of the night for one Nicky Taylor. And, well, that looked easy. I'm sure it wasn't, because it's a very hot day and, if nothing else, quite physical work pedaling around on the sim for 20 minutes or so. But was it the easiest of your wins so far this season? It's got to be up there, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, to be honest. I only really had one sketchy moment, and that was literally third corner, first lap, where I just completely missed my braking point and went straight. So I was amazed when no one got down my inside, but luckily enough, Andy and Joel kept battling, so I managed to just brake, and then I'd done my lap early with push to pass, and yeah, I'll try and go fast lap early so my tyres are in a good window. And then yeah, just kind of controlled the pace and didn't seem to be like struggling for anything, and just decided to rein it in a bit. So I went from doing like 7 dead consistently with 1 push to pass a lap to doing like a 7-3 or something consistently. So yeah, it's just consistency and just not pushing too hard.
It must be a really nice feeling to know that you've got that pace in your back pocket, though. I mean, you kind of, it's not that you know you're going to win the race, obviously, because it's never easy to do, but it does kind of bring a sense of calmness, doesn't it, and serenity to the whole evening when you know that as long as you get off the line well, people are going to struggle to keep up with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things to work on from that race as well, in the factor of my pressures. I'm not going to say exactly what, because obviously I don't want to give anything away, but there was a few pressures there that overheated massively throughout the race, and then near the end of the race, luckily they sorted themselves out, so we were okay. But yeah, obviously racing from the back is going to be interesting, but Silverstone's wide enough and there's plenty of overtaking spaces, so we'll see how we get on and just bomb our way through.
Well, the speed is there, that's for sure. Just need to try and stay out of trouble in those early laps, I think. Nikki, congratulations. Well done on yet another race victory. And who knows, we might be speaking to you again later on.
Hopefully so.
So Nikki Taylor, victorious yet again. Jack Oliphant, though, about to catch up with our second place man, who I think it's fair to say, Jack, didn't have quite such an easy ride.
Yeah, Joel Lask. That was, entertaining. Oh, it's a hell of a start from you. First couple of laps were really good, but after that, Andy Dorman, he was keeping you honest, wasn't he?
Yeah, just a little bit. I'm not sure where that pace came from, but yeah, it was a cracking battle. I see him flashing a little bit, and I didn't know whether that meant we're not going to battle. And then I was counting his hybrids, and all of a sudden he came back at me. So yeah, it kept me under pressure the whole race.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time drivers use those flashing lights just to try and put you off, don't they? Did that sort of play on your mind? Was that a little bit of mind games that maybe did enter into your head a little bit?
I've seen it all before. You know, Carl does it every race, doesn't he? So I'm used to it now.
Well, that's another podium to your name. Obviously, you've had some bad luck and you've missed a couple of rounds here in this championship, I believe, just off the top of my head. Is it nice to sort of end on a bit of a high?
Of course. We'll see what we can do in the second race and see if we can make our way up the pack.
Oh, fantastic. Joel, there's a bit of an outside chance for you and Scott to maybe crack towards the top 5, but it's very much an outside chance now. So good luck for race 2, and we'll potentially chat to you afterwards.
Cheers, thank you.
Excellent stuff. Congrats on that, Joel. Meanwhile, third place. Well, Andy Dorman, you've just heard what Joel made of your performance there. Were you as surprised as he was that you were able to challenge there for second place?
Yeah, I'm surprised I'm on the piss tonight, to be fair.
It's clearly a track that you get on well with. What are your thoughts quickly before this second race kicks off?
Just try and keep out of trouble for the first couple of laps and try and make my way forward, I think.
That sounds like a plan. Andy, we'll leave you to it because we do only have a few seconds before the race gets underway, but congratulations. Well done on the podium.
Yep, thanks a lot.
So that is race 1 in the books, race 2 to come. Championship, by the way, feels odd that we haven't really made more of this, but we think Jack Smith has won the championship. He basically only had to score a handful of points today. Elliot Dalton-Ayres needed to be winning races. Only one of those things happened, and it wasn't Dalton-Ayres winning. So I think that Jack Smith winning the championship is pretty much now a foregone conclusion, but he'd still like to end the season with a race win. He starts 8th and arguably the highest placed of the regular front runners. So maybe a shot at a race win to end his season for Jack Smith. It would be a 4th win of the season if he could do it. But it is a front row made up of, I believe, that's Nathan Smith and Kenny Press. The red lights are going to go out now. And the final race of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship underway. The Toyota will lead them down to turn number 1. Paul Laramie slotting into 3rd place, or trying to, but up the inside goes Lee Morgan. That had pile up written all over it into the first corner. Somehow they managed to avoid it for the time being. Josh Martin comes steaming round the outside. How could I forget about Josh Martin being near the front of the field? And he's up into the top 3 or 4 already. They're 4 and 5 abreast further back, Jack. There is no way that works.
No, and it didn't. Somebody got spat out towards the rear end, and Eric Axelson, I believe, was the driver who did, and there's more drama. Who's that?
That was Oliver Gibson going around. So both races now tonight. We've had a BMW round in the first few corners and just cost Oliver Gibson second in the championship. He rejoins alongside Axelson, who also, as we saw, got tapped into a spin going between Village and the loop. There goes Elliot Dalton-Ayres up the inside of Alec Iyengar. He's in the top 10 already, Jack.
Yeah, but there's a long way to go in this race, and he's still surrounded by drivers who'll be keen to finish this evening and this season on a bit of a high. Maybe some drivers who haven't had that much of a high in previous rounds. So the likes of Kenny Press is up there, Nathan Smith, Josh Martin. I can't believe we didn't really mention him in race 1. We always seem to mention Josh Martin. He's currently in 3rd place. Lee Morgan. Jack Smith, our champion, we can now say, is in 6th position. He's fighting with Paul Laramie. And here they go, going towards the Maggots-Beckett's complex. Smith trying to get his nose in front, and in fact gets his entire car in front as well, as our camera gets ran over by multiple touring cars. But what a shot it is. More drama in the background. Oh, is that Chris Blakey almost siding through the gap that 2 people had left? Luckily, Alok Iyengar, and I believe that's Ethan Hill, as Scott Bugner tries to push his way through and avoid any potential incidents going towards Stowe.
Yes, where Nathan Smith still leads. Seem to remember him doing this last week as well, leading towards the opening stages of race 2 and staying near the front for a little while. Side by side, sweeping around the outside, one of the HFT cars. That's Felvis, I think, up into 13th place now. As they make their way down the hill, as Alok Iyengar has a peek up the inside into Vale, and, well, was there contact, or did he get hit? Did he just lose it on the braking? I'm not so sure, but anyway, Alok Iyengar exiting stage left. Laramie's had a moment as well further up the road, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he is, but there's even more drama going towards Abbey. It did look like Alok Iyengar maybe got a bit of help because his car really did spit out there very quickly. Here is Paul Laramie and Ethan Hill, and then who's that just behind them? Is it Joel Lask? No, it's not, is it? It's, I'm not sure who that is, actually, who's in amongst it. Is it Nicky Taylor? Of course it is.
Yeah.
I almost forgot. I forgot what his car looked like at the end of race 1 when we got to it, and I forgot what it looks like this time as well. Paul Laramie's getting a bit bullied now.
Well, Ethan Hill was the aggressor and nearly came out of that worse, but in the end he saved it. Laramie ended up falling behind Craig Curtis and behind Joel Lask. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is up alongside Jordan Taylor. This is proper end-of-season race 2 stuff, isn't it? But good racing so far on the whole. A little bit of contact here and there, and as we saw in race 1, a BMW coming out of it the worst. We need to keep one eye on Gibson then. He is 19th, but Dalton-Ayres here putting himself in arguably a position he doesn't really need to be in, on the outside of Jordan Taylor, who's got absolutely nothing to lose. And Jordan Taylor, is he going to put up a big fight here? Because, of course, Kyle Felvis might still have an outside chance at this 2nd place in the championship. And guess who Jordan Taylor's teammate is?
Yeah, it doesn't take much to put 2 and 2 together, does it? But at the moment, Jordan Taylor is holding them up here. Here comes Carl Felvis with Scott Bugner as well. They're going to go 3 wide. You said don't go too wide into Maggots and Beckett's and here race to go. Wow, are they going to come out of this one?
No.
Damn, that's inevitable to be contact. Who was it? It was Jordan Taylor making contact with Scott Bugner. They're still bouncing off each other with Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who just about survives. Carl Felvis gets a decent run. He gets through. Here comes Nicky Taylor as well. And they're going towards Stowe. You think there's going to be more fireworks as they hit the braking zone. Dalton-Ayres on the inside. Jordan Taylor in the middle of the circuit. How close can you get? Pretty much door to door. Felvis and Nicky Taylor, and it's Taylor around the outside. Jordan Taylor around the outside as well. And in fact, it's Kyle Felvis. My apologies. I've got them mixed up somewhere along the lines. They've swapped over as they go towards the Vale chicane. It's an HFT on the inside. That's all I really know for sure. And Elliot Dalton-Ayres has to deal with the fact that he has to slot in at 2nd.
Well, I mean, if you give me £1 million, I wouldn't want to be in Dalton-Ayres' shoes right now, because he is absolutely surrounded by Hondas that may not all be running for the same team, but they're all affiliated with each other. You've got the 2 HFT cars, you've got ex-HFT drivers Ethan Hill and Nicky Taylor as well, all swarming around the Hyundai as Josh Martin leaves the pit lane. That must have been a drive-through penalty. Either that or he didn't have fuel in the car for some reason. So now he's in the group as well, and there's contact. Ethan Hill around further up the road. It is all kicking off just ahead of this group. Hill has gone around. Not sure how that happened. Oliver Gibson up the inside of Josh Martin. Where to look next?
Oh, God knows. I don't envy Lewis Edwards on the cameras right now, but we know that Jack Smith has got himself up to 2nd, and Nathan Smith, is still doing a brilliant job. It's Andy Carroll, isn't it? It's Andy Carroll up into 4th, and he's doing battle with Kenny Press. So there are plenty of drivers, and this is really the race where we should be highlighting the sterling job that a lot of these drivers who don't really get much of the limelight, we need to be chatting about them. But there's been so much drama, Andy, towards the rear end of the field, or in the mid-pack, I should say. We haven't really had a chance. Kyle Felvis still is in 6th place, of just ahead of Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Then Nicky Taylor. Craig Curtis is in the top 10 yet again as well. Scott Bugner has recovered after that contact. But here comes Nicky Taylor on Dalton-Ayres, who runs a little bit wide.
Indeed he does. So here we go then again, up towards Maggots and Beckett's. Dalton Ayres still can't escape these pesky Hondas, and as he makes his way through that fabulous sequence of corners, he's got to be worrying about the exit speed. They're also, of course, starting to catch now some of the slower drivers up the road who are fighting for position and are going to possibly get their elbows out. Kenny Press, in fairness, made a mistake there, made life a lot easier for Carl Felvers than it could have been, and Felvers, I think, might still be thinking that a race win could be on the cards. It is still Nathan Smith who leads, by the way. Jack Smith in second, third Lee Morgan, fourth Andy Carroll, and this then the fight for fifth as both Felvers and Dalton Ayres sweep ahead of Kenny Press.
Yeah, now Kenny Press is probably going to hold up Nicky Taylor for maybe a corner or two, or at least an apex or two before they get to Abbey. So Elliot Dalton Ayres will be very, very pleased with the fact that he's managed to make that little bit of a buffer and he can focus purely on the drivers ahead of him, or the one driver ahead of him anyway. Obviously, with Kyle DNFing in that first race, it means that maybe the pressure's slightly off Elliot, but it's still a worthy battle to be keeping an eye out on. Oliver Gibson is still sat down in 16th, so as Nicky Taylor gets past Kenny Press, the battle for second is still really in the hands of Elliot Dalton Ayres.
Kenny Press inventing his own line there through farm and very nearly losing control on the grass, but gathered it together. That was as Nicky Taylor swept past him. So Taylor was held up briefly, but has got back on the tail now of Elliot Dalton Ayres pretty quickly. Right, now for third place, Andy Carroll, bit of a touring car expert, as we know, is fighting for a podium place again here with Lee Morgan, who in real life is a single-seater racer. This is about as far away from F1000 racing as it's possible to get, and perhaps explains why he struggled at times this season. Doesn't make life too difficult in the end for Carroll, who now makes it two Toyotas in the top three. Not seen much of the Toyota Corolla at the front of the field this season, but Andy Carroll marching his way through quite nicely. Look at that black and pink Honda though, because Carl Felvers is already on their case. He's on the hybrid, he's on the outside, and he might now switch to the inside of Andy Carroll into Copse. No, Carroll closes the door. Felvers to the outside. Will try and get the switch back on the exit if he can, but Carroll now goes on the hybrid and should therefore be able to pull away again.
Yeah, Lee Morgan got a half-decent run, didn't he, there? So it's all going to culminate in the fact that they're all going to bunch each other up through this next section. Nicky Taylor, still doing battle with Elliot Dalton Ayres, and Nicky actually getting ahead of them. I think I missed that one earlier. So Nicky is now ahead of Dalton Ayres as Felvers chases down Andy Carroll still. There is Dalton Ayres on your screen. Trying to get the black Honda just ahead of him. And then we got the battle of the Smiths at the front end as well, which we sort of haven't forgotten about completely. But Jack Smith will be very keen to try and seal off his championship with a win here at Silverstone.
He will, and he might now have a good chance of it because he's alongside Nathan Smith, who's looking for his first ever victory here at the VRRC, and he's going to try and defend this if he can. On the inside, through the Vale, into the club chicane, round the outside goes Jack Smith, and in fairness, Nathan Smith really gentlemanly driving there, although comes back at him now at the inside. Brilliant switchback. It's all kicking off in the background, but let's focus on the leaders for now, who are side by side past the pits. Interestingly, neither of them going for the hybrid. Nathan Smith still has that overlap on the inside line. Does Jack turn across him? Leaves him just enough space, and I think will now emerge from the first couple of corners with the race lead. So Jack Smith out in front, Nathan Smith slots in behind him, Lee Morgan's off the track, and perhaps predictably, Jack, all of the positions from the third on back have changed since we last saw them.
Yeah, Dalton Ayres giving a bit of a lunge to Andy Carroll, who probably knew that was going to come. There's Scott Bugner with a big lunge on Craig Curtis, who wanted to get involved, and he's not shy of getting involved. And all this sort of action really is teaching Craig Curtis an awful lot. I'm not really sure on what his background. I don't think he's one of the younger drivers, but you can teach an old dog new tricks in motorsport, I think. So I like to think that Craig is learning an awful lot from these quick whippersnappers. Here's Nicky Taylor, one of the quick whippersnappers, against his his friend, shall we say, Kyle Felvers, the HFT and I believe it's Graves Motorsport they're running under. Or am I just think, is that his real life team?
No, he is under Graves, yeah.
It is Graves Motorsport. Yeah, the Graves Motorsport driver then, in two senses, the virtual and the real world, Nicky Taylor.
Indeed so. Now, no one has won 2 races in a night so far this season. Nicky Taylor is up to third position, so it could be done, this. He's, a second and a half or so behind Jack Smith. Needs to clear Nathan Smith first, but with all due respect, Nicky Taylor has been a bit quicker than Nathan so far tonight, so should be able to figure that out. He has got 3 fewer hybrids, we're told, than Jack Smith, but honestly, the way Nicky's driving Jack Oliphant, it's getting very confusing, I don't think that's going to matter too much. I think if he can catch Jack Smith, he might just have the raw pace to sort of force his way through. He's got to get past Nathan Smith first, looks to the inside into Stowe, used the hybrid to close in, but Nathan Smith, we've seen this before, doesn't go down without a fight, does he?
No, if he was quick enough and aggressive enough to hold off Jack Smith, then he's quick enough and aggressive enough to hold off Nicky Taylor. Both Nicky and Jack are very, very good drivers, but Nathan Smith doesn't really care. He wants his own podium, and fully well he should deserve it. He's not going to get blue flags thrown his way. He's done a brilliant job at leading what was effectively the first half of this race, and he wants to stay on the podium if he can, and he's doing a pretty good job at showing us that he's got good racecraft about him as well, even if he hasn't got the ultimate pace in that Toyota. But it's not the fact that the Toyota's slow, it's just maybe that Nathan Smith is lacking something, that little bit extra that the aliens of the sim racing world of the likes of Smith and Taylor have in their back pocket. And Felvis is right there, but I think ultimately that ridiculously light Honda is certainly working into Nicky Taylor's hands, isn't it? It seems to be absolutely flying around this circuit, as it has done for the majority of the season.
Indeed so. Needs to get this move done, though, and of course, because both of them were on the hybrid down the Wellington straight, it didn't really give him much of an advantage. Looks to the inside. Oh, Nathan's outbraked himself this time. Couldn't quite get the toe to stop. The Honda goes through, and Nicky Taylor into second. Now, that was significant. He's 1.25 seconds adrift of Jack Smith with 8.25 minutes to go. Let's watch that situation with interest. The only thing is, he's had to use probably more hybrid to get past Nathan Smith there than he would have liked, Nicky Taylor, and so that might now hamper his chances of first catching and then ultimately passing Jack Smith, but we'll wait and see. Through Cop's corner they will go. Carl Felvis now moves in behind Nathan Smith, with then Elliot Dalton-Ayres in 5th. Oliver Gibson, update by the way, only 13th, so it's looking like it's going to be 3rd at best in the points. He should, though, as long as he finishes the race, still have enough points to beat Carl Felvis to 3rd in the championship, which of course is worth a pretty nice prize, so that's well worth fighting for. So Gibson needs to keep on pushing, and in fact I saw him in the background there still tagging along with Eric Axelson.
Yeah, and there's I was going to mention Eric Axelson in 12th place, unusual for him. Andy Dorman, who said, if you caught Andy Dorman's interview, he said pace. He hasn't joined a lane on the wine or anything like that. He said pace. It's just his accent. He's in 14th place. Jordan Taylor down in 15th. Josh Martin down in 16th as well. So lots of drivers who maybe came a cropper. We know there was lots of contact on that first lap and first couple of corners. They haven't recovered quite as quickly as maybe they were hoping for. Here is the two LB Motorsport drivers, 6th and 7th. And well, they're used to sort of boxing against each other somewhat, and there's no team orders in this particular team, and it may be proven pretty well there.
The next words out of my mouth, and I kid you not, we're long overdue a bit of LB Motorsport friendly fire, and then it happened right in front of me. So Scott Bugner passed Joel Lask in robust fashion into 6th position, but that battle is likely to rage on. They've both been pretty evenly matched every time they've raced, actually, this season. Bugner hasn't done the full season, but every time he has raced with us, he and Joel Lask have been pretty close together, and that continues to be the case now. Now, the lead gap is coming down, but that is partly because Nicky Taylor is still hammering the hybrids. He's down to now only 8 tenths behind Jack Smith, sort of bringing Felvis with him, though, it must be said, so we could end up with a 3-way fight at the front of the field. Then Nathan Smith hanging on nicely in 4th position. Scott Bugner, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, in 5th. Scott Bugner 6th, Joel Lask 7th. I'll get some of this right. 3 Hyundais there together. Then it's Craig Curtis inside the top 10 again. Andy Carroll is 9th. And that looks like it is Lee Morgan, isn't it? Completing the top 10. But that lead gap, Jack, no doubt about it, is coming down.
Yeah, well, I think Nicky Taylor just set the fastest lap, or one of the fastest laps on maybe a lap or go or something like that. He's a 2:07.2, so he's going very quickly. And even on that last lap, I think he was the quickest man out on circuit by about 2 tenths of a second. Oh, no, Joel Lask actually just about beat him on that last lap, to be fair. But yeah, very, very quick indeed, as we now focus on that top 10 battle with Kenny Press trying to get Lee Morgan out of his way and dragging Eric Axelson and Oliver Gibson along with them as well. Obviously, 2 drivers that we mentioned before, maybe underperforming in this particular race. Well, we get to see a little bit of a cameo from them now.
Yeah, in fairness, not really through any fault of their own. Both got tapped into separate spins within the first couple of corners, didn't they? And that was race ruin from there. But they've been trying their best to make forward progress. It is notable, though, I think, isn't it, Jack, that drivers of Eric's caliber, Oliver's caliber, got Andy Dorman just behind them as well. He was on the podium in the previous race. Stick them back in the pack, and they really struggled to come through. I know they're back there partly because of the reverse grid, partly because of the spin, but then they just haven't been able to dig their way out of that hole. In seasons gone by, they'd have been back in the top 5 or 6 by now. It just isn't happening this season because everybody is taking that bit of a step forward. It's been fantastic to watch, creating some good racing, but certainly making their lives harder and keeps the pressure on. They can't afford to slip down the order.
No, they can't. And speaking of slipping, it's slipping through there is Scott Bugner with a little bit of contact here and there. And Elliot Daltonez has been encouraged off the circuit, I would say. It's probably the PC way of saying it. I think there's going to be a hybrid use by Daltonez, who tries to go around the outside. Bugner versus Lask now. Friendly fire incoming. I think you're probably correct in that theory. Andy, and just about Daltonez gets his nose in front and his rear bumper as well. But we know that took a little bit of a knocking going through Farm and the loop, so no one, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again. But there's been a change for the race lead. It's Nicky Taylor taking over Jack Smith.
Yeah, Taylor was on the hybrid down the Wellington straight, got to the inside out, braked the BMW driver and took the lead away. However, he is not going to have as much hybrid as Jack, so if Jack can just stay with him and maybe have a go on that final lap, he's got 8 hybrids left as Jack. I mean, this is going to be fascinating. Nicky Taylor has got 1 hybrid use left. Jack Smith has 8 left. I really don't see a way that Nicky Taylor can win this race, but honestly, the mood he's in at the moment, I would not put it past him. And he's got Carl Felvis coming in hot as well in 3rd. That could be the thing that saves it. Oh, mistake there, though. Mistake. Got 2 wheels on the dirt. That's going to slow him down the back straight. And Smith could be back ahead here by the time we get to Stowe.
Yeah, I think it's lucky we're not on iRacing, because that probably would have given him a slow-down penalty. But with the hybrids in use, he pretty much had the same effect. But to be fair, Jack Smith couldn't actually get anywhere near Nicky Taylor there. So the hybrids maybe not using that much of an effect going down towards Stowe for the rear-wheel drive. Elliot Daltonez holding off an attack from LB Motorsport yet again. And I say LB Motorsport because it could be Bugner, it could be Lask. Bugner slots up the inside. I think there was a suspicion of maybe track limits on the outside of Stowe, as there's more encouragement to force the other driver wide. But this time it came from Daltonez onto Bugner, and Lask is the next up on the list of drivers to try and overtake the current second-place man of the championship.
It's time for my, I seem to say this every season, but my Andy's a wet lettuce and doesn't want to see any racing moment. There is no need for Elliot to be having this battle. He is doing more than enough for second in the championship. He could allow Joel Lask through, he could allow Craig Curtis and Andy Carroll through, and just follow them to the flag. He doesn't need to battle against 2 of the hardest racers on the grid in the LB Motorsport teammates, because there is always the danger of contact. Meanwhile, for the race lead, Nicky Taylor defending the inside line. We have got just under 2 laps to go, and Jack Smith is now starting to deploy some of those extra hybrids he's got at his disposal. Oh, Taylor cut the corner a bit there. I think that started to slow the car down, but he got back on the road again in front of Jack Smith. If Nicky Taylor can hang on to this race win, Jack, he deserves it. Having charged his way through the field, he's now at the front with little to no hybrid available for defence. This should be a very one-sided battle.
Yeah, it should be, and there we go. The BMW does get back into the lead, but as they go through the Maggots and Beckett's area of the circuit, I think you're going to see a little bit of an advantage from Nicky Taylor, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Even if he is right on the back bumper of Jack Smith, they'll both hit the hybrid, and then one more time, I believe it is, I think if I'm counting that correctly, Smith will have a few more left in his back pocket. And yeah, I think a little bit of a sitting duck, but you can't take it away. Nicky Taylor has tried everything to get this double race victory, to take the whole amount of points available from a single race evening. But I don't think it's going to come and be enough. I think it's going to be just short.
Jack Smith uses the hybrid, only gaps him by a few tenths, so you see he's not getting off the corners well enough. So the first half of the hybrid usage is just getting him back to breaking even, really, Jack Smith, and then he starts to gain a little bit more ground. Meanwhile, Elliot Daltonez isn't listening to me, they never do, and he's actually, he and Craig Curtis, both ahead of Joel Lask now. Curtis starting to ask some questions of Daltonez, and dives to the inside. We know he likes this lunge. He goes through, that runs a bit wide, but gives him the inside for Club, and there's almost contact. There is contact. Daltonez elbowed off the road and will drop back in line behind. This is getting dodgy now for Elliot, though. He cannot afford to get knocked into a spin.
Yeah, it was a bit dodgy from Craig Curtis as well. I mean, there was no contact in the initial lunge, but after that, it looked a little bit suspect, didn't it? But to be fair, it's a very tight area of the circuit, so I won't try and put any ideas in the stewards' heads or anything like that. It just looked like it was very, very close racing, put it that way. But I'm a fan of Craig Curtis tonight. He seems to be doing very well under the circumstances of not being really particularly quick for the entire season. But he qualified well, he raced well in race 1 as well, and really put a bit of a spanner in the works for the championship, fighting between Daltonez and Oliver Gibson, obviously. And then in race 2, maybe he's been a little bit too keen in some areas of the track, but you can't say he's done anything worse than Daltonez, than Scott Bugner, and a whole host of other drivers. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of him tonight.
Absolutely, and in fairness, Craig has had his moments this season. He's had a handful of top tens, had that 5th place finish in race 1 at Snetterton as well, which was on genuine pace because it was not a reverse grid race. This, therefore, wouldn't even be his best finish in the season, but you're right, we don't see a lot of him towards the top end of the field. Nice to see, though, again, when he gets that trap position, like many other drivers out there, capable of holding on to it, and that's really the thing that's impressed me the most about this season. Through Maggots and Beckett's they will come then. This is the final lap of the race. It's the final lap of the season, and there is Jack Smith. Well, he wrapped up the championship in race 1 with a pretty below average race result. It's fitting, therefore, that he's going to finish the championship with a race victory, and well, he had to fight for it. Nicky Taylor, no doubt about it, was quicker than him, but Jack had been saving those hybrids. He's used the hybrids to defend in the closing stages, and as he drops down through the veil now, Jack Smith on course a race victory. He started the season at Donington Park with a race win, won again at Croft, claimed a 3rd victory of the season in the reverse grid race at Snetterton, a 4th race win, but more importantly, a championship for Jack Smith. He wins the final race of the season and is provisionally the champion in the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. 2nd place, Nicky Taylor, so tantalisingly close to that maximum points haul. 3rd for Carl Felvis. 4th was Nathan Smith with Scott Bugner 5th, Joel Last 6th, Andy Carroll 7th, with Craig Curtis 8th. So Carroll there dropping behind the LB Motorsport Hyundais towards the end, whilst Elliot Dalton Ayres in 9th should have done enough there to claim 2nd in the championship. Eric Axelson 10th. Will be close, I think, between Gibson and Felvis for 3rd in the championship, though, because Carl Felvis did not have a particularly good night, did he? So we shall see. He got a 3rd place in that race, I guess, but maybe that's not going to be quite enough for that 3rd in the points. We shall see. We'll get the abacus out. We will gather the drivers for the final set of interviews of the season, and we'll be back here at Silverstone in just a few moments. Welcome back to Silverstone. Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship action concluded for the season, and what a fantastic season of racing it has been. 16 races, all of them hugely exciting, and at the end of it all, a worthy champion. In many ways, a predictable one, I suppose, because when he won the first race of the season at Donington Park from pole position, there were those who said this was going to be a Jack Smith walkover. It's not been quite that straightforward, but a 4th victory of the season is the icing on the cake for Jack, who joins us now in the commentary box. Jack, didn't get the chance to chat to you after race 1, the race in which provisionally you did wrap up the title, but nice, I'm sure, to end the season with a race win, and a really, really hard-fought one too.
Yeah, I'm still, I'm not really understanding how I won that second race, to be honest. It was, I was quite a fair bit off pace in the middle sector, so yeah, we just sort of took it lap by lap, and I saw Nicky catching, and I didn't realise how many push passes I had saved until the second to last lap, so used them all up on the 2 laps, and it worked out in my favour, so really happy. And I had no idea I wrapped it up in the previous race, so I was just praying that I didn't have a bad race in race 2, so yeah, really happy.
Yeah, that was a fabulous battle between you and Nicky. How aware were you of the hybrid situation there? Because we knew that you had a big advantage with the hybrid, and yet actually, even with that, you didn't really seem to be able to get away from him.
Yeah, no, Nicky was ridiculously quick round here. He's nailed the middle sector. I was watching him in my rearview mirror just gain like half a second and less than that. So, yeah, it was crazy. I just sort of
kept my push to passes until he caught up, and then for 2 laps to go, I used 4 on each lap, and sort of did it like that. And yeah, it worked. So yeah, couldn't be happier.
Let's talk big picture then. Championship victory for you. What a fantastic achievement. We've been saying all season long, this is one of the most competitive championships we've ever run here at the VRRC. So many drivers capable of running at the front. You've got the hybrid thrown in there, the different cars that kind of all have different strengths and weaknesses. To come out on top at the end of the season must mean a huge amount to you.
Yeah, definitely. And, to be, leading the constructors as well, my brother, that's something that's it's really amazing. So, yeah, props to Ollie and to Dave for letting us run his logos on the car and, running his livery as well. It's been a mega season. Everyone in VRRC is massively improved, like, time-wise, and it's been the closest season I've ever raced in VRRC. So, yeah, I can't wait for more.
And any particular highlights for you over the season? Because there's been a few races where you've managed to sort of grab victory from the jaws of defeat, it seems, quite a few times, particularly in reverse grid races where it looked like you were down and out and then seemed to claw your way back through. Is it those races you remember the most fondly, or is it those where, you qualified well and ran away at the front?
To be fair, it's every single round. Like, yeah, I mean, not even the bad rounds I had, like at Snetterton and stuff, there's been some great racing in like every single race that I've done. So, yeah, I mean, the highlight reel is probably going to be about over an hour, so we'll have to, find some time off there. But yeah, it's been a mega season. Every single race has been mega. So yeah, props to everyone who's been racing and to everyone who's organised it. It's been really, really good.
Absolutely echo those sentiments, Jack. You've been a fantastic champion this season, and well, let's hope we're going to see you back in the future to defend this title. But for now, Jack Smith, your provisional champion in the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. Jack, well done.
Cheers, Andy, and thanks for doing the stream, guys. It's been a really, really good stream throughout the season. So, yeah, props to you guys.
Thank you very much. It's all very friendly and loving, this, isn't it, in the commentary box? Let's hand over then to Jack Oliphant to spread the love around and chat with our race runner-up.
Yes, I shall do. I'll give it my best go anyway. It's a driver we've already spoken to a whole host of times. He's our most winningest driver of the championship and the driver who got the most amount of pole positions as well, as he sticks his arms up in the air. Nicky Taylor, close but no cigar to the perfect evening, but still pretty damn good.
Yeah, I knew I was screwed coming like 3 laps from the end when I had like 2 or 3 push pass, and then obviously because Ethan had a bit of a shocker and DNF'd, he then went straight on the stream and told us push passes, so I knew for a fact Jack had like 8 left and I was completely gone by that point. But yeah, there was still a glimpse in me that thought I was going to be able to fight for it because I knew my pace was good enough without them. But yeah, the just sheer amount he had left on the last 2 laps was just too many. And to be honest, the season's gone all right. Like, by my part, it's probably the last 5 weeks have been my best 5 weeks, I think, ever in sim racing in terms of race 1 and qualifying. I went from having 1 pole, I think, in VRRC before to having 5 on the trot. So that's gone well. And then, yeah, to finish about 7 points off P5 in the championship, we're missing 2 rounds and having a shocker at Thruxton and a shocker at Alton as well. Yeah, I can't be too displeased.
I was going to say, it's a championship of what could have been for you, isn't it? But you are joint, and I won't spoil the entire list of who you're joint with and all that sort of thing. We'll reveal that at the end. But you are joint 7th place, which, considering the Thruxton drama and then obviously not being here for 2 of the rounds, I mean, 7th place, anywhere near the top 5, in the top 10 is pretty miraculous, isn't it? You said after the poll and after your first race, you know now that you've got the pace in the touring cars. Are you still going to be practicing in the car just in case it comes back round again anytime soon?
I mean, I love this car. This is probably my favourite mod VRRC have done, as shown by like my pace in it, and the Honda just suited me at every track. It's been such a big change from the GTs as well, from going from a car that I just didn't gel with and didn't get on with, not being able to hit curves, to going straight back to touring car, which is my playground really, and just where I can excel and do what I do. And yeah, it's gone well, and I know there's going to be some more in the future. So we'll hopefully, I'll look at the calendar and see if we can do the whole season. If we can, I don't see why we can't win it.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But Nikki, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and we've talked to you a lot to this championship. So you never know, we'll probably have you on screen and more times than often than not in the next championship as well. Where's Ted as well for this evening? Has he disappeared?
Oh no, he is here. Hang on. He is here. He was just laying up on the bed. But
Oh, he's
yeah,
just chilling. He knew what was going to happen. He doesn't even have to watch you win anymore. He knows it's going to happen.
No, he's chilling. He knows he's sitting in the cool air with the fan. So.
Oh, he's got the right idea then. I advise going to join him now, Nicky. You've worked hard this evening. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I can take away the most winning driver. That's a good quality to come away with. And yeah, thank you for everything you guys have done, like what Jack said. And yeah, have a good rest of your evening, guys.
Oh, thank you very much. Again, Andy, all the love is being spread, and I'm a big fan of it.
This is all far too nice, isn't it? Let's see what Kyle Felvis has got to say then, our third place finisher in that race. And well, Kyle, not a lot to love, actually, for you tonight, in fairness. Things haven't quite gone to plan, it must be said. But I have to say, we have a pleasant surprise coming your way when we have a look at the points in a little while, the provisional points anyway, because actually you've not come out of it too badly. A trying evening, at times been a trying season, but you must be satisfied to have come out at the end of the season still in that fight for second place in the points.
I don't know how, but yeah, this evening was just chaotic. Crazy. There's no word to describe it, really. That second race, you all know, like you can see on the stream, I never shut up. That second race, I was silent the whole thing. I have never pushed so much in a race ever to try and keep points and get just ahead of Elliot, because I knew it was going to be my drop round anyway, but if I'm ahead of Elliot, it just pushes him down the field a bit more. So I knew that if I could get ahead and make it, so he dropped a few more points. And luckily, Scott and Joel were battling with him and got ahead. And provisionally, I'm P2, but yeah, you never know. It will probably some penalties. I don't know, maybe, but we'll see.
That aside, though, I mean, those are the races I think that some drivers really love. They really thrive on those moments where, you know, the chips are down, you've nothing to lose, you have to try and make some progress. Like you said, it wasn't affecting your points haul particularly, but you could still have an influence on Elliot's championship. You had to get up near the front. Do you really enjoy those moments where the pressure is on like that?
Not really. I didn't want it to be on, but you know, you get what you get what you're given, and then you have to deal with it. So that's what we did, and we pushed on through and got P3 behind Nicky. I knew letting Nicky pass was the smarter thing because he's just been rapid. I don't know what Florida did to him, but ever since he's come back, he's just been too quick. And he would say he was quick before, but he wasn't this quick. So I don't know what they did to him over there, but he's so quick. So I let him pass and then just pushed on and built that gap and got P3.
Absolutely. Maybe he's been doing some laps at Daytona and got used to going extra speedy around racetracks. But no, Nicky was on an absolute fly. You, though, have been on strong form all season long as well. It's really not been a bad season, has it? It's just by Carl Felder standards, maybe a few more wins would have been nice, but 2 race wins, lots of podiums as well. And we know that you do enjoy the front-wheel drive as well. So on the whole, I hope that you have managed to find moments where you've kind of seen through all of the pressure and the drama and had a bit of fun.
I don't know if I'd say I enjoy front-wheel drive, but, you know, I'm
well, these days.
Stop fighting it, Kyle. Stop fighting it.
Starting to get there, but, yeah, no, it's been a fun championship. I have enjoyed it, having Jordan as my teammate, and obviously we've got Nicky and Ethan, and they'll always be part of HFT. But having all 3 of them around you, and then, you know, it's just a great atmosphere racing with everyone, and, yeah, VRRC is great, and this championship has been a really fun one. Everyone's been racing so closely, and these cars have been probably some of the best cars. I still think Porsche Cup was the best championship we did, but these cars were good, and yeah, it has been fun, and I can't wait for the next touring car one.
Nicely said, Kyle, and we will make a front-wheel drive fan of you yet if it takes us another few years. Kyle, huge congratulations, well done on the podium, and all things considered, a pretty solid season.
Thanks, Andy.
So, there we go. They were your podium finishers. Now, we've sort of been teasing it a little bit during the interviews there, but we do have the provisional final points. I'm going to reiterate that these are the provisional final points, because there is every likelihood that there might be a few adjustments to this. Not even necessarily drivers towards the front of the field getting penalties, but if others further back get penalties, it has an effect on the maths. You understand. But Jack Smith as the champion, pretty unlikely to change, you'd have to say. So big congratulations once again to Jack, the DK Power Racing BMW on top come season's end. But then look at that, we have a tie for second place between Kyle Felvers and Elliot Dalton-Ayres. So I was banging on all race long about how Elliot Dalton-Ayres didn't need to fight, he didn't need to get involved in that scrap. Well, actually, one more point from that race could have made all the difference. Kyle Felvers gets the nod for second place provisionally because he has 2 race wins, and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, amazingly, never won a race all season. He was just wonderfully consistent the whole time. Oliver Gibson 4th in the championship in the end, only 4 points back, despite that drama at the start of race 2. And the canny fox himself, Eric Axelsen, somehow, Jack, making it into the top 5, despite what was probably his worst season in years.
I can't believe that, honestly. I think I was looking at all the drama while we were doing the interviews, while we were chatting to Kyle and how close everything was. So Kyle to Elliot and Oliver making it in there as well. And then my attention just immediately went down to Scott Bugner and Nicky Taylor and Josh Martin and people like that. And yeah, I just completely missed the fact that Eric has somehow sandwiched himself in there. And I don't think we've spoken about him positively more than about 10 times in any of the races. Not that, in fact, we hate Eric Axelsen sort of lack of positivity, but I think even he would say that he doesn't quite know how he's ended up with a top 5 finish. But I believe he did have plans once upon a time to come over to England and have a go at the VRRC Sim Centre. Well, he's just won 1 hour's free drive there, so at least the flight over will be worth it.
Absolutely, that's fantastic stuff there from Eric, and it goes to show you don't have to be the fastest car on the track in order to do well in a championship. So that's how the top half of the championship table looks. Fantastic season had by all, and as I said, fairly confident that Jack Smith is going to come out of all of this with the championship. So that brings to a close the racing action this season, but we never rest here at the VRRC, and we've got more racing coming up in the near future of a slightly different kind, it must be said. Apart from the fact that these cars also have roofs and 4 wheels, there aren't many similarities between the touring cars and the GT500s, which are coming up next. A 4-race mini-series, special event series, if you like, which is going to have a very Japanese flavour. The Suzuka circuit will kick things off on the 21st of June. If you want to get yourself on the grid, and make sure you head over to the VRRC, Virtual Reality Racing Club, to give it its full name, website and Discord server as well, where you can register your interest and get yourselves on the grid. These are going to be fantastic cars to drive, and we very much look forward to seeing some of you out on track. Just to drag our attention back to touring car matters for a moment, Jack, it has come to my attention that for, I think, the first time all season, I may have forgotten something, and that is to crown our driver of the race. So since it's such a rare thing for me to make this mistake, why don't I let you come and clean up after me, Jack?
I'd take the mick, but to be honest, I'd just be reminded of every single time I've forgotten something. So it's the driver of the round, of course, and we try and give this to a different driver every single time. And Nathan Smith caught our attention today. Very good race 2. Led the way for about half the race, and even when he was looking like it was all going to fall away from him a little bit with the storming championship contenders charging up behind him, he didn't let it go without a fight, and I think everything he did in defensive wise was very clean as well. Big shout out to Craig Curtis. He would have been certainly one of the drivers that we would have really wanted to give it to, but we already give it to him back at round 2, so he's already got an NGK jacket and a little medal as well. So I think Nathan Smith has done a good enough job, we believe, to warrant his own sticker or medal or whatever they get and jacket. So congratulations to him. And then we also have the best fan of the round, the best commenter. We still haven't thought of a snappy name for that one, but you know what the prize is. It's Linda Whitlock as well, who we've chosen to jump in and give the NGK. It's not a bobble hat, it's a snapback. And I've been informed it's Carl Felvers' Nan, I believe, is Linda Whitlock. So there you go. Nan, you've got a snapback on its way, and we sincerely hope that you take a picture with it on and send it over to VRRC. I'm sure you'll be loving it.
We need a family picture, I think, isn't it? That's what we want from you guys.
They've all got one now.
Exactly, yes. Talk about best fan. I can absolutely... Oh, go on, Rich.
I was going to say, are you two ever going to learn what are the right prizes?
Oh, it's a jacket, isn't it? It's a jacket. The snapback for the top score of the round. I knew it. You know what it is.
Oh my goodness.
I blame the heat, but I'm going to blame the heat, and Rich can choose whether or not he chooses to believe that. Thank you, Rich, for stepping in so gallantly to rescue us both there. Whilst you're here, Rich, your thoughts on the Touring Car Championship, because it's always a favourite, isn't it? We always get a really good reaction to the Touring Car Championships here at the VRRC, but do you agree with our sentiments that this has been the most competitive one yet?
Absolutely. I mean, even with all of the new drivers that we've had in the championship as well that have really come on since round one, which feels like yesterday. But yeah, absolutely, it's been fantastic, and I've really enjoyed watching it all. Well, obviously, we've had our ups and downs as we've gone through the season, but as with every championship, I guess the one thing for this, from a spectator's point of view, is Jack just ran away with it a little bit too soon for my liking. But it would have been nice for it to be one of our usual down to the last race championships between 3 or 4 drivers, but even so, what a championship. Really enjoyed it. Can't wait to put on the next touring car.
No, absolutely. And there is still a lot to be admired in Jack's performance, really. A really classy performance from Jack, because yes, he had a good car, and there are those who will say the BMW had a big advantage. We all know that's not the case, because over the course of a season, over the course even of a night, he struggled to do the things that we saw even people like Nicky Taylor do tonight. So he didn't have a car advantage as such, but what he did have, I think, was a calm head on his shoulders, because there were times when things went completely wrong and he ended up getting tapped sideways into spins and things. Never panicked, never lost his cool, just calmly plugged away, scored points when he could. That's how you win championships.
Absolutely. There's a huge amount to be said for keeping a cool head, and I've met Jack, I've met Oliver, they are brothers. They're both very calm, cool, collected guys, and really enjoyed meeting them. But even when they've been in situations in the races that, probably some people could have thrown the toys out at, they've just kept the cool and carried on. And, that is a classy way to win a championship.
Your thoughts for what comes next then at the VRRC? We've just been teasing the GT500s. I'm really looking forward to this. It's a car or a type of car that we've never had here in sort of broadcast competition at the VRRC. I'm really looking forward to seeing what sort of racing we get out of them. But my one word of advice to the drivers thinking of taking part is get a bit of practicing, because they don't look very easy to drive.
Yeah. Do you know what? They're actually not too bad. There is a massive amount of aero on them, so they are extremely powerful, but the aero is, it's bordering Formula One levels of aero. It's ridiculous. You can really throw it through some fast corners and it sticks. So, yeah, I get what you mean. Obviously, they are tail happy, so you just need to be a little bit careful with the loud pedal. But from everything else, they're pretty planted.
They are, and they make a good noise, and they go very quickly, and they look really good as well. And some fantastic tracks as well. Again, Japan, Asia in general, not really a region that we tend to go and race at very much. So going to be nice to sample some tracks that maybe the drivers actually aren't even that familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. We spoke to URD and asked them about where they tested the car, for the development of the bopping, and they basically said that they tested them on the Japanese track. So it just seemed relevant and right that it's GT500 is a Japanese series, and URD tested the cars there. So yeah, let's just do the tracks. And you're right, we haven't used them. So we used Suzuka a couple of times, but the other tracks will be new to championships.
And it's going to be hugely exciting. We'll all be here to watch along. Hopefully we'll get plenty of drivers on the grid. If people want to get involved, where do they go? What do they need to do?
Well, they need to join our Discord. If you go to our website and go to the Sim Racing part, there is a link there to join our Discord. We've got lots of new things coming on. As we know, we've got GT500. Our free to enter to everyone fun races are having a revamp. I've finally decided, much to my other half's pleasure, that I can't do it all on my own anymore, and I'm getting people to help me. So Eric is taking over fun races, and he's got a great program of those coming up, and they'll be held on Sunday evenings. Starting this Sunday with the Mazda Unos, which is a slightly higher powered MX-5 at Road Atlanta. So you might want to get involved in that, Mr. McEwan. And then, but the emphasis on the fun races is going to be cars that people can drive that they know, and tracks that people can drive and that they know. So they're not having to spend lots of time doing practice to be quick. They can rock up, have fun. A number of other drivers in there, obviously from our community, but anybody that's new that wants to come and race with us, you can come and do it for free. The other thing is our time attacks. So I'm handing that over to Andy Carroll. So we've got our final attack of the current season finishes, I think, the end of this week. Yes, it does. And then me and Andy are getting together next week to talk about how the time attacks are going to shape up going forward. So again, really looking forward to that. Then after GT 500, we're only going to do another touring car season, aren't we?
And that is music to everyone's ears, I think, because we're expecting more really good racing. I know you probably can't tell us too much right now, but any little hints as to what might be coming up with the touring cars next time?
So yes, I can actually. So we are we're using the current pack of cars. So the two rear-wheel drives with the Infinity, which nobody chose this time, and the BM. We're also going to add the Cupra to the front-wheel drive. So we'll, I think, have 9 cars to choose from in total. But the other thing is, Lewis has been doing his usual, ever fastidious ripping things to pieces to fix them, which we love. So he has a very large list of things to do on this pack of cars. Basically, what we're going to do is throw away all the physics and redo all the physics. So we like the way that they are, but we want to make them even better. So we are going to revamp the cars, revamp the models, revamp the graphics, revamp the colliders, the collision physics, all that type of stuff. We're basically going to take what somebody did and make it a whole lot better.
And Nikki Taylor has just signed out of VRRC.
Absolutely. Well, Rich, thank you. I really can't wait for that. That's going to be a huge amount of fun. And I do urge you all to come and get involved with the VRRC. Fantastic community to be a part of. Right then, almost time to go now. It's always a bit of a bittersweet moment, this, isn't it, Jack? Because we spent 8 weeks building up to the final round of the championship, and then in a flash, it's all gone, and we have to wait a little while before our next dose of VRRC action. But it's been a pleasure working alongside you for most of the season, as always. And what a fantastic season it's been. Some really, really great racing. Some of the best, actually, that I think we've seen.
Yeah, I think it has been. And following your sentiments off to it's been a pleasure working with you. But I think the person who's sort of been the super sub normally for VRRC has probably had the same amount of commentary appearances as we have, actually. That's Lewis Edwards, of course, who we always give a bit of a shout out towards the end to say a bit of a thank you. But to be fair, he's done a brilliant job in not only bringing us a broadcast, but also his lovely tones as well to sort of lift up a little bit where maybe we would have been left on our own for a few too many times this season. So it's great to have Lewis come in and jump in whenever was needed. So big thank you to him. But yes, Andy, it's been a pleasure as per usual. Big thank you to VRRC drivers who have obviously put on a hell of a show, and all the spectators and people who have commented and stuff. I think it's been the best engaged series we've been in as well, in terms of the YouTube comments. And I know that's probably something to do a little bit with the prize, but we've had new people jumping in all the time, and obviously the age-old faithful getting involved with chatting on there as well. So big thank you to everybody who's come and watched as well.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. That is it then for the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship. It's been quite the ride. A huge congratulations to Jack Smith then for provisionally wrapping the title up, and looking forward to seeing him and the rest of our drivers, perhaps a few of you at home, joining our grid in the near future. For now, though, from myself, Andy McEwan, Jack Oliphant, Rich Hayden, Lewis Edwards, everyone who helps to put the broadcast and need everything here at the VRRC together, a big thank you to them. And we will all be back to do it again in a couple of weeks' time. Woo!